Hey, Pastor Josh here. We're reading Genesis chapter 11, verses 10 through 26. More of those genealogies that we all love. These are the generations of Shem. Remember, Shem is one of the sons of Noah. When Shem was 100 years old, he fathered Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. And so, what we see here is that there were no children born on the ark. It wasn't until after the ark that children were born, and so Shem has his child 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he fathered Arpachshad 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad had lived 35 years, he fathered Shelah. Now, what we want to notice here is just how quickly Moses is wanting to get us from Noah and his children, to get from Shem all the way to Abraham. So we're going to be moving rather quickly because we want to get to the father of faith. We want to get to ultimately the father of the Israeli nation, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we're going to go through these rather quickly. And Arpachshad lived after he fathered Shelah 403 years and had other sons and daughters. We don't know who these other sons and daughters are, but they were born and they lived. When Shelah had lived 30 years, he fathered Eber. Remember, that would be a form of Hebrew. Eber, if you put that H on there, Hebrew. You get that form there, and so that is ultimately the name that the Hebrews will be taking. And Shelah lived after he fathered Eber 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber had lived 34 years, he fathered Peleg. If you remember, Peleg was the person in the genealogy that we read a couple days ago, that when he was born, that the earth was divided. And so the thought was, this is when the Tower of Babel happened. And so if that's the case, based on the age, if the Tower of Babel and the division of it happened when Peleg was born, it would, at the very earliest, been 101 years after the flood. Now let that set in your mind. It was only 101 years after the flood that we have this major tower being built to challenge God and to ultimately say, hey, we need to be remembered. That's how fast humanity has gone downhill, and Shem would have been alive during all of this. And so that, if that happened when Peleg was born, it would have happened in the 101st year after the flood. And Eber lived after he fathered Peleg 430 years and had other sons and daughters. And it is interesting that Eber was the one that has lived the longest out of all these folks. When Peleg had lived 30 years, he fathered Reu. Peleg lived after he fathered Reu 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu had lived 32 years, he fathered Serug. And Reu lived after he fathered Serug 207 years and had other sons and daughters. Notice how the ages are getting smaller, shorter. When Serug had lived 30 years, he fathered Nahor. Now we are now at, this would be Noah's grandfather. And Serug lived after he fathered Nahor 200 years and had other sons and daughters. And Nahor had lived 29 years. He fathered Terah, which is Abraham's father. And Nahor lived after he fathered Terah 119 years and had other sons and daughters. When Terah had lived 70 years, he fathered Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Now, I got these as read because both Nahor and Terah are recorded in Joshua chapter 24, verse 2. They are recorded as being worshipers of other gods. They did not follow the one true God. And again, this is the descendants of Shem. Shem would have still been alive during even Abraham's time. And they have so degenerated that they are worshiping other gods. Now we're going to see what God does to Terah. He calls Terah, or he actually calls Abraham, and then Terah ends up following Abraham to go to that land of promise, to go to the land of Canaan. Also want to make a note here, while we're here, we see Abraham, Nahor, and Haran, or Haran. You would think that since Abram, which will later be Abraham, since Abram is mentioned first, you would think he's the oldest. More than likely, he's probably the youngest. If you do some math here, that we'll kind of see in the next reading, that Abraham was 75 years old after Terah died. That tells us that quite plainly in our next reading. That more than likely Abraham would have been born when Terah was 130 years old. And so what often happens is that the youngest child ends up being the favored child, even though the normal pattern would be that the oldest child gets the birthright, gets the inheritance. But God really likes to, in these stories, flip it and make it the younger child, or make it the one that society would not think would inherit, actually will receive the blessings, and actually will be the line through which Jesus will come. So Terah lived 70 years. He fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And right here we have this coming to a close of the primeval history, and then moving into the Abraham story, the father of faith. Pray that has been a blessing to you. I'll see you in the next video.